If I had a quarter for every time somebody says, the Mormon church is a totally volunteer situation, it's all run on the backs of volunteers, nobody gets paid for anything, I'd be Elon Musk. The Mormon church is not a volunteer organization. It is not a charity. It is a Ponzi scheme. I don't know if any of you, like in your 20s, were ever invited over to somebody's backyard barbecue, and then they started drawing out on some random whiteboard with a marker the little Amway circles with the people at the bottom and then you at the top, and this is how you're going to make money. It's a pyramid, it's a Ponzi, and it's not a good thing that these millions of Mormons are running around serving their church all the time. That's what Ponzi schemes do. Remember Bernie Madoff? Time, resources, and labor of everybody at the bottom are being pilfered up to the top. They don't even stay at the bottom. It's not even like the money that I paid in tithing and stuff stayed in my local ward that went straight to the top. That's what the top of the pyramid right there. Jake and I averaged between $100,000 to $250,000 a year income, and we paid tithing on that gross income as well as other offerings, donating to the Perpetual Education Fund and humanitarian projects and Friends of Scouting and things like that. We had a considerable amount of income that was going to the church in the form of tithing. So we would pay sometimes $25,000 in 1 year in tithing, on top of Jake being the Stake Young Men's president and me running our ward Young Women's and all of the hours that we put into humanitarian projects and cleanup and things like that. In our 24-year marriage, Jake and I paid between $200,000 and $300,000 to LDS Inc. And I don't think that it's possible to add up the amount of hours that we donated to the church. And what did the church give us in return? Absolutely nothing, because they promised us eternal life and exaltation and our family being together and all that stuff. But that's fake. That doesn't exist. And that's exactly what Bernie Madoff did. He promised people retirement. He promised people that they were going to have wealth to pass down to their children forever. But it was fake. It didn't exist. I remember the Bernie Madoff documentary when they said how that when people found out that it was a scam, that they were storming the building and like ripping tiles off the walls and breaking windows, and grown men like laying in the lobby of the building screaming and kicking their feet in the air. And that is exactly how I felt when I found out that the Mormon church wasn't true. I wasn't volunteering. I was investing. I was investing in my future and in the future of my family, and it was a scam. It wasn't real. And just like Bernie Madoff up at the top of that Ponzi scheme, that pyramid, sucked all that stuff out of his investors, the Mormon church has sucked the life out of their investors. Volunteerism has the assumption that you're not getting anything in return. You're just simply doing good in the world. That was never my assumption in the Mormon church. I assumed that I was getting eternal life, that I was going to become a goddess, that I was going to have my own planet Kolob out there somewhere and have spiritual babies for the rest of eternity, and my children living close to me in the mansion in heaven with Elohim and Jehovah. Those were all lies. I think that it was all just based on some wild, heavenly harem wet dream of Joseph Smith. Ponzi schemes, by the way, are illegal, and those at the top can be prosecuted. The Mormon church is a Ponzi scheme, but because it cloaks itself as a religion, it falls under that religious protection, and there is no oversight committee. We in the anti-Mormon and ex-Mormon space, we are the only oversight committee to protect other people from getting scammed by Mormon Inc.